Welcome friends, it is I, your LostScarf, and it's time for the second patch video, and that is about the warriors. So what we're going to do here is I already did all the math. I had spent some time, about an hour, doing all the math and all the numbers for all these warriors here to figure out how did they actually get nerfed. So I'm only going to give you the results. I'm not going to give you all the math for that, or else this would be a lot longer video. I'm going to give you how much damage was lost and how much attack speed was lost, and what abilities were affected, and what do I think that did to them personally. And we'll go from there with that. But the thing to take note is what they did to warriors was for a reason. Warriors are supposed to be jack of all trades, master of none. The problem is, warriors were the best of both worlds. Warriors were very tanky, but also very damaging. They were as strong as assassins and as tanky as guardians. So because of that, they overshadowed guardians to the point that no one played guardians, they only played warriors in the support lane. By doing what they've done now, you have to make a choice. Do you want to be really strong like an assassin, or do you want to be really tanky like a guardian? That's really the choice you have to make now when you build, instead of just being really strong in both. And now because of that, we will see still warrior supports, but more guardian supports now because of the changes here. That's really what they did here. That was what was intended, and that's what has happened, I am sure. So let's talk about the first one, Chuck. And then Nemesis will be last one because he's an assassin now. So Chuck, he lost 8% on attack speed and only 3 damage in hand for his damage there. But the real big one is Rain Dance. So his Rain Dance got nerfed to that. He doesn't slow down attack speed anymore. It used to go up to 25% attack speed slowed, which gave him a good advantage against hunters and assassins. That's like a Quinn size and so on like that. And that's gone now. So he'll have a harder time with physical gods. He already had a hard time with magical gods. So now he has less survivability for Rain Dance, but he'll still be a pretty good force, just not as good as he was. Now Guan Yu took the stick a little differently. He lost 5 points of in-hand damage overall. He also lost 12% attack speed. That is an item again, but still, dang, 12% attack speed is gone from Guan Yu. Also on top of that, of course, is Talu's Assault now no longer gives him armor. It only takes armor away from his opponents. The advantage to giving armor to Guan Yu through Talu Assault was huge because he could take on an entire team. He could take armor from 5 gods and be really hard to kill, allowing him to distract the team for a very long time while his teammates did other things. Of course, also with that debuff, he could debuff an entire team, so his team could just really wreck them really hard because of all that armor that was gone. So that really does hurt Guan Yu there. The attack speed does hurt him a bit, but really Talu Assault I think is the bigger hurt to him, and that was really a bread and butter thing about Guan Yu, was his ability to handle a team on his own, and now it's gone, so I'm a little worried about that for him. Now Hercules, he lost 9% attack speed, so again, that's one item. But what else happened to him? Well, he has shorter casting time on Driving Strike, and also he's CC immune when he does his ultimate now, so that's good there. Also, if he dashes into another knockback, he's immune to it. So this is the idea, is all dashes are now supposed to be immune to knockbacks. So what used to be is Hercules, if he dashed into Tyr won that fight and he would knock back Herc. Now they just go through each other, so that's what happened there. So Herc is a little bit stronger now, he didn't get nerfed that bad, and so he should be in a pretty good position going forward. Okay, so Odin only lost 2% of his attack speed, but he did lose a couple passives. He lost the physical power passive from Odin's Shout, and he also lost his physical protection passive from Gungnir's Might. On top of that, Ring of Spears no longer gives protection to his teammates, only to himself, which really sucks for his teammates because when they're stuck in there, they might die horribly, so that's pretty bad there. And I worry about this. Odin lost some of his passive. He lost his natural tankiness that he gained from his passive, and he also gained some of the power that he had. And that's kind of big for Odin. Those passives were some of the things that pushed him over from being someone that no one played to someone that was regularly played. This does take him out of first ban status, but I worry that this might take him out of just being used status. Those passives were pretty useful for him. They made him a very strong early force going into late game, since he's not that great late until you get items into him. So I am worried about Odin. Of all the warriors, the one that worries me the most is Odin. Second that is Osiris, who we're going to talk to now. Osiris lost 10% attack speed. I'll explain the math a little bit on this one. So he lost actually 20% attack speed, but they bumped his base up by 10% from the start, so he only lost 10% overall. And that's all that's happened to him. Osiris is still the same guy he's always been, he's just going to be a little bit slower, and it will be a little significant at the beginning, but as he builds, he'll be fine again. But definitely at the start, he's going to have some trouble there, so Osiris is going to have a pretty weak opening game. Mid to late, he'll be a lot better, but I don't know, Osiris might be in a bad position here just because he was very okay to begin with, so we'll see if they buff him in the future. Now, Sun Wukong's one of the ones who took a really big nerf here, and he actually lost 19% attack speed. That's a lot of attack speed there. He lost 19% and 5 in-hand damage. On top of that is his Magic Cudgel lost 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 damage across the board. So that gives him less clear, less harass, and less kill potential there. Because just what happened to Magic Cudgel. Also, his Master's Will now does not do knockup. Now it does a 30% slow for 2 seconds. This is kind of important for Sun Wukong because this is what made him the best support in the game, was the fact he could interrupt with his Ox. He could interrupt a whole team with his Ox, or he could stun one god with the Tiger. He could get anywhere he needed with the Bird, and with Master's Will, he could interrupt an entire team again. He had 2 ways to interrupt the entire team with his Ox and his knockup from Master's Will, and now he only has 1 knockup, and so we will see what that does to his support potential. I believe Sun Wukong can still support pretty well, but not as good as he used to, and also his ability to kill is a little bit less, which is fine considering that he is the premier support, and because of that, you want him to do more harass than kill. So, there you go with that. But, given all the things happening to him, I think he'll still be viable as a support, just not as good as he was before, obviously. Now, the other guy who took a big stick to the face is Tyr. He lost 24% of his attack speed. I'm not kidding with you. 24% was lost, also 5 in-hand damage. But that's not everything. His abilities as well. His Unyielding now no longer applies towards Roots and Cripple, so Roots will give him some trouble now. Also, his Fearless and Guard Stance no longer does a knockup, which, as I said already, with Sun Wukong, knockups are pretty big. You can interrupt pretty much everything with them. And so that's gone. So there you go with that. And his Power Cleave has lost from 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 on the damage there. So, whoops, wrong one. Power Cleave. So he has less damage, but he does get 65% power contribution when it used to be 50. That's 15% extra. So, in order to make up all that damage, he needs around 333 physical power to get back to his old Power Cleave damage. That's how much you need there, so buy a lot of power, apparently, to do that. On top of that as well is his Guard Stance. The healing is now flat. There, he no longer gains healing from physical power now, and it's only, of course, from 3 hits there. So what does this all do to Tyr? Well, Tyr can, of course, basic attack with less speed, so he isn't as deadly in that way for sure. The other one is he has less survivability because he no longer knocks up with Fearless Guard Stance, which was a big lifesaver. I've survived many battles with that, and I've failed to kill many Tyrs because of that. So that's huge for Tyr right there. On top of that is the fact he can't heal as much anymore. He only heal at best 330 per swing there with the Power Cleave. And, oh my god, Tyr could heal up to full in about 3 of those Power Cleaves. And now it's going to be a lot harder to do that, so that definitely cuts down to survivability a lot there. And overall, I don't know. I think he might have been over-nerfed here, but for the most part, I think it's fine. Tyr is an amazingly hard god to kill, and he's able to just cause complete grief for a whole team. So these nerfs, a little too much, but also fine if they maybe revert a little bit of it. Tyr is still going to be a pretty strong force. He still has his Fearless combo. It's not as deadly, but it's still a great support setup, and he'll just still do pretty well with a good team. In solo queue, maybe not as good, unless he teams up against some pretty not so great people. But I think Tyr, even though nerfed pretty hard, still has a good position. Not much to say here. Vamana lost only 4% on attack speed and 5 points of in-hand damage. That's all he lost there. He's still going to be in a great position. And that's it. So now Nemesis is no longer hiding. She is now an assassin instead of a warrior. She's where she should have been from the beginning, as we all know. And here's what happened. She has lost base 5 HP. She used to be 475, now she's 470. But per level has been changed from 82 to 76, so she does overall have less HP than she used to as a warrior, which she should. Attack speed, she actually has gained 3% attack speed from her warrior days. And of course, as you can see, her physical protection has gone down from 17 to 11. So she lost 6 points of protection for the beginning there. So she's a little bit squishier and has a little less HP, but she does hit faster. And that's all that's really happened to her, and we'll see if they have to make buffs or nerfs to her in reflection of that. But for the most part, she's the same, just a tiny bit squishier, while being also a tiny bit faster. That's all they've done to Nemesis. Now, warriors are meant to be jack of all trades, master of none, like I said before, and for the most part, they're still going to be able to do that. They just won't be as extreme as assassins or guardians are. Most of them can still do support, solo, jungle, and mid if you really want. Not really ADC, of course, but they can still do every role, but to varying degrees, of course. And I think the major supports are still going to be Sun Wukong and Tyr. I think they're going to be really good supports. Odin probably still can support pretty well, although he will be easier to kill. Also, Guan Yu can still support, but losing Tyloo Assault will make him not as great a support in team fights, and also just tying up opponents. At the end of the day, I think the best support is going to be Sun Wukong with Tyr right behind him. As far as solo lane goes, Shock, Tyr, Hercules, Vamana, they're still going to be very strong there. Sun Wukong is so rare in the solo lane anymore just because he's always using support. Guan Yu, I don't think I can do it right now. Odin, I really don't want to even consider it. Osiris, he can probably still do it, but his early game is going to be a lot worse than it was, so it's going to be pretty hard to do. As far as jungle goes, Osiris, of course, can do jungle there. It's going to be a bit slower to do. He's going to rely on his abilities a bit more. Luckily, he will, of course, have Red Potion or Death Toll to help him out with that, so there's that. But his jungling is going to be a little bit slower at the start. Tyr can still jungle pretty well, though Power Cleave is weakened. It's going to be a little bit harder to clear it out early on. And then, of course, mid lane, it's really hard to do, but Hercules can definitely do it for sure. And Vamana as well, and Tyr. Well, anyone in the solo lane can do mid, just not as well. But the god I'm worried about the most has got to be Guan Yu, because Tyloo Assault was kind of bread and butter for him. Odin, I'm a little bit worried because of how squishy he's going to be. Osiris, I'm definitely worried because he's just going to have a weaker early game. Tyr and Sun Wukong, I think, will be in fine places still. Hercules is going to be even better, and Vamana and Shock will just be as good as they've been, but Shock has to worry about Warriors a little bit. Well, not Warriors, but Physicals a little bit more. So overall, I think they did what they intended to do. Is it too much? Hell no, it ain't. This is not Rest in Peace Warriors. I think they did fine. They tweaked them down. When you actually look at the numbers, it doesn't look that bad. The abilities, though, are what you got to worry about a little bit. But I still think Warriors will be viable, just not as much as they were before, which is exactly what was intended. So good job to Hi-Rez on that, but we will need to see buffs and nerfs in other places to get these guys more in line. Right now it just looks good on paper. We'll see how good it is in play, seeing as it was the first day of patch. And that is everything for the Warrior portion of the patch. Up next is going to be Janus in Arena, and then Conquest tomorrow with Janus. And there you go with that. So that is the second patch video. I had fun with it from watching, and that's what's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.